The ideal franchise owner is somebody that understands restaurant operations and the necessity for giving a great experience, a consistent experience all the time, and somebody that buys into culture. Culture is a word I think that we bat around a lot in our industry, but culture is building, an attitude in the restaurant that's respectful towards team members, getting them to work cooperatively, really focusing on that guest experience, plugging in the community, and having a little fun while you're doing all of it. I think if that's there, then you've got the right culture for success. We talk a lot about happy service. We want to give happy service, which is maybe a simplistic way of talking about a big smiley face, and we want to be happy when we give service. But in order for service to be happy, it's got to be expeditious. It's got to be, it's got to be friendly. It's got to be polite. It's got to be all of those things. So, that's our culture. We want to have happy service and happy franchisees.
Yeah. I don't know. My personal opinion is you can't teach culture, right? Culture is definition of culture to me is how we treat one another.
Right.
So the brand is only going to be as good as how we treat one another.
Right.
What about the traits that a franchisee needs in order to be successful?
I think they have to be, obviously have to have a little bit of entrepreneurial bent about them, right?
Okay.
So it's not a pure entrepreneurial experience, right? If it was pure, then they would be creating their own bagel restaurant. They are a franchisee. Sure. But you have to have a little bit of that excitement to be, your own business person and so forth. I think you have to be committed to the brand. You have to be committed to the principles of the brand, to our, standards, processes, and so forth. And then to really being a part of your community. You have to be willing to get out there and really engage in the community and let people know who you are and what you are and what Brooklyn Water Bagel is all about.
Well, that's one product that if you get out in the community and you do it right, you're going to have some local fame.
There's no question. And it should be a fun part of the community.
Right.
What's more fun than, a great iced coffee and a tasty bagel breakfast sandwich? There's nothing better.
Absolutely. Okay. So what is the investment range for a franchise?
The investment range, again, is going to depend upon what part of the country you're in and so forth.
Sure.
But anywhere from maybe from about $500,000 on the low side to about $600,000-$700,000.
Okay. And your requirement is typically it's 5 units?
Yes. We want to see somebody come in for 5 to 7 units. Are there cases where we've talked to people about 3 units? Sure. There's also people that come in and talk to us about 10 units. But sort of the sweet spot is 5 to 7 units.
Okay. And Dan, do you have like a criteria location-wise that you want to adhere to if somebody wanted to have a development of 5 units? Like how far apart they are, or can they spread across the state? How, or
we want those areas to be clustered.
Yeah.
But it really depends upon where they are, and we work with the franchisee to put together an area that we know will make them successful, but at the same time, services the community that they're in the right way.
How do you know if a territory is not going to be good? In other words, who doesn't want a bagel?
We actually have, predictive modeling and so forth that we've utilized that, takes a look at our existing customers, our existing successful units.
Great.
And it correlates it, and it's a predictive tool.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the group that we work with, I think is a solid group, and they're based right here in Tampa.
Sweet. So. Dan, to be a leader of an organization, there's always going to be challenges. There's mistakes that we've made along the way, and we hopefully have learned from them so we don't make the same mistake twice. Is there something you could share maybe with some other, emerging franchisors, or maybe a challenge or a mistake that you guys made early on that you've adapted and learned from that you'd be willing to share?
Actually, I haven't. I would say that one of the lessons we learned, I think, interestingly, when you look at different marketing programs right now with some restaurants, collaborations are a big deal.
With other
brands.
Yeah.
And you think, hey, maybe I can work with one of these brands. It's good for both of us and so forth. I think we learned that can work and can be positive, but maybe not as great as you might expect.
Like your expectations of the results it wasn't as big as maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we had some of those experiences. And I also think sometimes when your brand is strong enough as it is, then you really focus on that. You develop products, you work on products that are within your brand line. Sometimes going outside of that's not the best way to go.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about marketing and bringing on the right people. How do we ensure that you bring on people that are going to be really good at operating a business and not buying this because they like bagels?
Really tough, but yeah, I mean, that all goes on in the conversation and so forth.
Yeah.
And sitting down and talking to them about what their business plan is and where they see going in the future and what drives them, what things they've done that's brought them success, what things they've done that has brought them some failures in the past. So you understand that. And did you learn from your failures? And are you doing things differently?
Right.
I think understanding all of that. I don't think it's necessarily a perfect equation, though. I don't think there's a perfect answer. I think that there's different ways to be successful in our business, and you have to be open to that when you're talking to franchisees.
Yeah, you certainly want to know, where their head is at, what their expectations are. I always found the challenging part is that I expected when people first bought a franchise from me that they were like me, and that they were going to, I don't want to say just work as hard as I did, but maybe my expectations were that they had the same expectations of themselves that I had of myself.
Right.
And I learned really quickly that people have all different aspirations. And in my business, it was really a lifestyle kind of franchise. And it was sports, it was kids. So people did it because they loved it. And I had some people that were really high flyers and they wanted to, rule the world in their territory and,
right.
and have just, all the market share.
Right.
And they would look at some other franchise owners and say, hey, that guy or that girl, they're not that good. And I would have conversations with that franchise owner and they were super happy. They were actually, it was meeting their needs and meeting their expectations. And well, one of the big lessons I learned, I guess, is that not everybody's equal in terms of the aspirations of a business.
I think you're absolutely right. And you're also right when you say you're looking at how you do it, right?
Right.
And I have to check myself on that all the time. I get so fired up and impassioned and believe that there's always a way to figure something out and there's a way to get it done. And you realize that people are not always wired the way that you are.
Sure.
What I also absolutely believe 100% is if they come to you with an idea, even if you think it might not be perfect, but it's still interesting. It's on, target with the brand and so forth. But they really believe in it and they are committed to making it successful.
Right.
It will absolutely be successful.
That's awesome.
Because they're all in on it.
Sure. Has there been any influence from a franchise owner with an idea or suggestion they made that got implemented?
Absolutely. With new product concepts or different ways to do service or different systems for managing data, results, and so forth, all of the above. Yeah, I think having conversations with our franchisees and talking and getting thoughts and ideas is a great part of the business.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest surprises in franchising is that the benefit of having franchise owners that had incredible, backstory, experience and all different careers and facets of life, that they brought something to the table that I wasn't expecting. That was innovative ideas on how they managed people or how they wanted to position the product or experiences. And some of our best ideas came from our franchise owners.
Right. You asked me about my biggest surprise. I would say my biggest surprise with the business was all the constant feedback we had early on people wanting to change and tweak and mess with the menu. Now, I worked for Domino's Pizza for a period of time, and at one point, Domino's had 2-size pizzas, 10 toppings, and they only did classic Coke. At the time, even franchisees were saying, hey,
Sure.
Can't we do a Diet Coke? And the response was no. It was very regimented. But at the time, the company opened up 1,000 units in 1 year, and it was very focused on the program and executing.
Sure.
Same thing if you go to Chick-fil-A, what an
Right.
amazing organization or amazing restaurant company doing unbelievable things, but they don't mess with the original chicken sandwich. It is what it is. And I was surprised at all of the feedback we would get to tweak it. And now that's sort of gone. But at some point, I do believe as a company, you have to say, this is who we are. This is our product.
Yes.
We're proud of it. We're going to really stand behind this, and we're going to really make sure that this is a part of what we do.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.